Hi guys, thank you very much for joining me. Paulina here. Happy coming August. Here looking at the two charts side by side, one for the beginning of August and one for the end. And tell you what, this is not going to be exactly what you thought it would need to be, but it's going to be exactly on point. This is where things kind of come true in a very, very roundabouty way. This is where you don't think so, but it happens. This is where you don't want it to be this way, but it kind of makes sense the most with this in mind. This is where you never thought this would be the climax or the culmination, but yet it is. And here we have a very, very unusual and perhaps also slightly unfortunate time for those people that are not really ready to embrace things the way they are. It's like fighting, going in the opposite direction, saying no, no, no to fate, saying no, no, no to your timeline, and also beginning to be perhaps really bothered and really intense about certain things by the end of the month when you recognize things are not going to go how you want it, but how you need it. And not just this, because we're all part of this global connection, we're all part of this global shift. It feels to me that it's not just this. It actually feels to me that it's going to be beyond it. It's like the world changes itself for us or changes us for its own purposes. So it's like ginormous plates, it's like ginormous sheets of people, if you can imagine. It's like big connective groups, large mind, overall outcomes are more important right now and more progressive than our own. So individualism and thinking of yourself as the only one, the only person that feels this way or feels that way. Mom said dad did that. Like I'm not really sure about like what's going on in my life. All of that stuff is going to start to die off and become kind of like less robust, not only for yourself but also for us. So what I mean here is that these types of attitudes are very long outdated. I am the only one. Nobody knows what it's like to be me. These are my friends. This is my work, like my life, my world. All of this has to basically be shed now. And if you can also develop very healthy self-esteem on top of that. So what I mean is like disconnecting from this feeling and also this fear that there is something about you personally that needs to change, or there's something about you personally that's a certain way. So deliberately disconnecting from that world and then going towards a really, really amazing feeling, sensitive, sensual self-expression through just being you and also just being us. What I mean is feeling pride for the collective soul, feeling pride for the collective psyche, feeling big and strong as a human because there's so many of us and there is such an interesting fate that we have as a species, feeling big and strong about the world, feeling large, about this planet, feeling large about what you got going on in your life, and feeling big as part of an expression of source. And that means feeling global, also feeling maybe for some of us cultured. So, for example, feeling really proud as a professional in a certain type of job, feeling very happy that you belong to a certain type of theme or a certain type of, overlay of the human psyche, feeling very perhaps also slightly aggressive about your truths. I'm not telling you to, like, say, worship your sports team or really go out there, like, proclaiming your version of what God is. It's not really about this. It's just more like hoping for the best for who you are and where you belong, and also development of cities, development of towns, development of society, development of cultures, and also certain rhythms in life that we ourselves need. So developing our own strategies and also strategies of the other. So here we are strengthening as a species and as not lowly commuters or lonely commuters in life, or like, tiny little speckles. We're not just, a single plankton floating around in a sea. We're like millions, we're millions, and we have to basically now realize how one hand washes the other. It's like we're all feeding each other. And though we don't perhaps realize it, but there's many scenes, many cultures, many evolutionary spectrums that are taking place simultaneously for us all kind of interacting with one another. And in a sense, we're all like plankton in the sea, you know what I mean? We're all kind of like particles, and we are all also like oversouls and smaller portions of souls that play with each other. It's like a big ecosystem. So basically, see yourself as part of the world. Don't see yourself as this individual that is just the only one. You know, like my mother once said this to me and I never got over it. You know, all of these feelings of being that neglected child, that one only person that cannot find, like, say, a partner, or that one single person that cannot, you know, find an audience or be heard. All of these like singular based prisms are not going to be for us anymore. But also, not only that, it feels to me that these ideas of loneliness and servitude, starvation, martyrdom, you know, being kind of like this unlikely hero, the saint, you know, the foolish one, the one, you know, at the beginning or the one at the end. Everything that feels like a standalone job or anything that is kind of like abused or ridiculed is going to start to perhaps come off as a maybe surprise to all of us. And we're going to ask you, why do you feel this way? So, for example, if you are feeling very upset and you're prone to be very isolated, very alone, and you have this kind of bout of freedom, perhaps, or bout of self-neglect, or bout of prophecy, and you feel you are the only one, the stand-in person that never will ever be like anybody else in the world, never been before, never be again kind of feeling, that huge kind of like deep individualism is going to start to look very strange to us, especially if we don't share your sentiments. But we all are going to start to weed out and fish out these freaky feelings that we feel, and these freakouts we have sometimes as part of this obsession with the self and obsession with the individual. But it also feels to me that everything that is too individualistic and designs itself to be completely as the one, or that one focal point based person, or, you know, business or anything like that, you know, even Instagram accounts, you know, marketing, anything that champions the individual, are going to start to kind of fade, and people are going to kind of laugh at these ways in which society has developed many tactics through advertising industry and through like social psychology to isolate the individual and make them feel like they're not free, or they're the only one, or the world owes them something. All of these people that are now sort of like coming to the surface to you as well, perhaps in your own groups or in your own villages, or, you know, your own job, you know, and your own collectives, or just in your world. Somehow they're coming across kind of as narcissistic, or perhaps very self-indulgent and only self-developing. They're going to start to become kind of uncomfortable, and perhaps you can bring up to the surface, and maybe you already have been bringing up to the surface, that there is something to heal there, with us all, perhaps other people in your world, you know, that are suffering from a bout of individualism as a sign of self-neglect, or disproportionate relationship with the all. So what I mean here is people that don't know that we're all connected, people that we, you know, still don't perhaps understand because they can't see that they're speaking for all of us, that they're still like part of a greater cycle. Everybody that feels left behind, every soul that feels like a free radical, like a stranger, like a pirate, like a non-connector, like a non-deserver, these are going to start to become very obvious. So if you're somebody who has maybe just recently got over that pattern in yourself and seeing how much you missed out on in life because you have cherished these patterns, it is so nice to speak out about it, like to speak out about how maybe you no longer feel depleted, you no longer feel indifferent to other people, because you now understand that you are not very, very, you know, uncommon person, that you're actually just you. I'm actually starting to feel that as well. So I've also had negligence in the family and things like that, but I'm starting to come out of these patterns of abuse and mistrust myself. So perhaps as you're coming out of these patterns, you're going to get quite a few people that perhaps really surprise you, because they've come to you maybe in the past because they had these patterns themselves, and you might actually be able to unblock a lot of other people from those patterns if you've just come out of one of those patterns yourself. So trust, also self-trust. Despite childish and foolish behavior, despite wanting to be the martyr or the left of center person, despite all these tiny groups, like feeling nerdy, feeling unrequited, feeling stuffy, feeling put behind, at the back of the bus, not wanting to speak out about your feelings, or on the opposite scale, being ever ever so opinionated. All of this stuff has to come into alignment, basically. I don't mean that we have to all like force ourselves through some kind of therapy, but it would be so nice to basically cover it all. And then otherwise, Virgo and Libra and Scorpio especially going to be hard months, socially, emotionally, relationship wise, because these are going to be so hard to weed out then. So now we're all kind of kids and we're all learning, and we kind of understand maybe that there are ways in which we're very tall, and then there is lots of ways in which we're very, very small indeed. So it's just imagining and understanding yourself a little bit better, but by just basically trusting that it is what it is, and you like what you like, and you are who you are. Maybe there are lots of ways in which you are just a child, and maybe there's lots of endeavors and lots of strategies that you're still taking on in your life that are based on neurologically unsophisticated or maybe even juvenile tactic in the world. That's okay. That's okay. So basically, we all understand that we are all ascended and very grown up, or very, very esteemed on some level, and then on other levels, we're just very, very tiny. I, for example, cannot find the stamina to work out. For the last year, it's been on and off. It's difficult. Maybe I need to find someone who can help me with that. But then, for example, they might find something in me that is very esteemed that I can help them with. So it's peer support, and also maybe a little bit of peer pressure as well in terms of what you might like to do as a collective. So because we're so jammed up and so kind of slidey and glidey together by now in this pig year, we've really formed our links, and we're already kind of like in the greater mind as parts of a certain collective strategy, or a certain kind of like energetic overall. So like if you can imagine, the oversoul for all beings on this planet has already, in a sense, created, arranged, and not just that, but kind of like put in place for maybe a long time to come certain movements, certain motions, certain demographics, and certain vibes. And by now, basically, it feels like we don't have to really do that much. We just have to be kind and note where support is needed. Oh, somebody's calling my name. Oh, wow, my friend is really struggling. Like, for example, he's not very strong and he's got quite a lot to do today. I'll help him with that. But then also don't be afraid to speak out and tell people, like, I actually have no idea how to do this. Like, for example, I'm going to build this new website and I actually have no idea how to do it. So this childish innocence here in Leo is very, very well spoken of. Also, anybody who can come out and tell other people that they actually don't really understand clearly something is a very, very beautiful person to other people. Just look at this incredible stellium. I mean, if you are looking at the charts over this season, over this month, have a look at how amazing this is. I mean, we have this stellium of planets that is neatly moving from this kind of like crosshatch between Cancer and Leo to crosshatch between Leo and Virgo. So we have like a whole group kind of moving like this. It is very, very beautiful to see. This feeling of people traveling together, this feeling of people forming flocks and collectives, this feeling of people supporting one another and giving each other a sense of esteem, and also a sense of protection and safety. Because I did say in the moon video as well, there's going to be predators on the loose. There's going to be some weird, odd behavior and oddness that comes from stagnation, from self deficits, from any kind of sense of self-irrelevance, so if we are in a group and we're feeling tight and we're feeling fine about where we've been put, and we feel okay about where we belong, this is going to create a very, very, very nice energy, which I feel forms a really beautiful family, community, culture. And by the end of this month, it feels to me, with this amazing, amazing Earth trine between retrograde Uranus, retrograde Saturn, retrograde Pluto, and the stellium of planets in Virgo, I mean, truly, to me, to my heart, it just feels like we've really done something beautiful, and then we have to really, really, really relax and understand how amazing it all is. It has to work together. It's like, it's a little bit plastic fantastic, it's kind of like, it's like magazine quality. What I mean is, if we can collaborate and if we can be okay about where we're placed in society, we can also be okay about our own relevance and our goals and our purposes. by the end of this month, it feels to me that we're kind of like giving ourselves this big hand of applause, or we start to weed out those things that we never had to weed out. Being very strict, being very picky, by the end of the month becomes just unusually uncomfortable. People that are already picky and strict about things that are just not human to be strict about, people that are out of culture, like say for example, if a certain energy does not like a house being, for example, too warm, and another culture doesn't like it too cold, and then you've got people, kind of like tricking each other into turning the air conditioning on and turning it off, things like that. Or for example, if people have a certain type of ethic at work, and then they try to kind of like bombard each other with reasons why that's the best ethic. So things can be a fight, a mess, even to the point where people are arguing how to do the best with, like, for example, something completely irrelevant, how to cross the street properly, okay? And people start to kind of fight, and you can already see this mixed match of energy. There are some of us that are already in Leo starting to assert ourselves as the best ones ever at something, but not understanding we have something else to learn. If you are in a fight, especially at home, and if you've got like some conservative friends or family, and they're like telling you off and teaching you, like, say, how to close the fridge properly, and you got to wrap everything up in cellophane, and you got to do this and that, or you got to, like, for example, go to an interview, and you got to like dress right, and you got to do all these things. Hard-nosed rules on this level don't work, and not just do they not work, they're just completely dumb, because we're missing the point. And the point is that we're together. That's the point. The point is that you're together with someone. That is the global connection point. It's like, for example, this is your partner now, or, this is who you're dating, or this is your family, this is your community, this is where you feel safe, this is where you feel homed, this is where you're vibing. That's the point. And the point of, like, who didn't close the fridge door, or, for example, who left some water on the bathroom floor, that type of energy really, really digs into us, and it just doesn't work. Also, like, on the other side, some people might feel very proud and very optimal about discussing animal rights, veganism and activism, and maybe even travel, or like, what is a human, what does it take a human to do this, or that. If you are that person that's already starting to push some ideas together and pushing them strong, make sure you don't. Make sure you don't. Make sure that it's okay. And also, by now, please understand that sometimes things are just not personal. It's just not personal. It's how a person been brought up. It's how they have been raised. It's what they've chosen for themselves. And because you are together, there is a greater purpose than leaving the fridge door open by accident for some reason, or like not making your bed in the morning, or like talking about like human rights right now. It's not like by the end of the month, you'll see this especially escalate for some people. It is not about conflict. It's not about banging your drum, trying to get attention for something, especially at home, especially with people that are close to you, especially people that you won over. You won someone over, keep them around. Sure, you have different things happening. If there is enough connection, if you still keep in touch, there are likely big changes for you too. Together, there is likely some kind of merging of connection. There's going to be at least barter or exchange. If you've got people in your field, if you've got people calling you, if you've got people ringing you, if you've got people living with you especially, or living in your area, and you're rubbing shoulders with them, you can't afford to argue about silly stuff, even if it is like the war in Iraq. Just stop it. Just stop the argument, and try to find how you can help each other, and you can motivate each other, and how we can lead each other towards a greater life, simply by offering our skills to each other and our presence, because sometimes it's not even the skill, it's just being present there and holding space for one another. Unfortunately, by the end of the month, we won't quite see eye to eye. I feel that collaborative projects might not look like a good idea. We might leave ourselves in the dust. We might feel like we can't quite do it. We might feel that what we've committed to is small. This is really unfortunate. Virgo contracts everything. Virgo's a contracting sign. By the end of the month, we've got the moon, we've got Venus, we've got Mars, we've got the sun in Virgo. Okay, and Mercury just there as well, actually, on 2 degrees. By the end of the month, actually, you've got a whole stallion of these planets, okay, and Virgo, contraction. sometimes you got to start small. Also to make things perfect, you can make it very, very commercial, you can make it very, very viable, whatever you're doing. It needs to be, how can I say, not harmed as well. It's like if you are putting together a project between two or three friends, if you're starting to collaborate now, barter your time, by the end of August, early September, you got to be okay with where it stands. It's like where you can't afford to poke at each other, you can't afford to poke out, the mistakes in the project, because you can actually give birth, even by September, to a very kind of gnarly looking, very sick or very insignificant piece of art, or you can very easily create a very, very uncomfortable design because you've prodded at it for too long. Okay, poking, prodding, getting aggressive, being like a person who feels diminished, and that means you diminish other people, being unlucky feeling for other people because you're always kind of on the run and you're never kind of happy with what you have. If there are people like that in your family, okay, if you formed a collective, if you signed up to do like some kind of a job, or if you are, signing up to do some kind of project, or you're even in a marriage now or a situation of the heart that involves a very like picky, like proddy energy, recognize where you aren't perhaps energetically wise enough or connected enough to walk away from certain things, but you have to speak lightly, tread lightly. Some of us, if we break things off with these people on this level, we might not find ourselves at home, we might feel disconnected. Or if you're looking at really no longer fixating on something, this is really harsh. I've just done this like a few days ago. If you don't want to fixate on a certain human being, or what they represent to you, and you're kind of realizing it's getting aggressive or unsafe, there needs to be a nice sliding door situation, and you can't just walk alone into something else and close the door and feel safe inside a tiny incubator space. We don't really have a lot of time. During Virgo, there's going to be a lot of incubative spaces. There's going to be a lot of studios. There's going to be a lot of luck found underground, in small little spaces, tiny nests and tiny collectives, or just one-on-one, or just by yourself. During Leo, if you are starting to shift out of these situations where you're actually being bossed around for nothing, perhaps in your field there are voids where you don't have any energy, where you don't have any ups or downs, where you just don't carry any light. And that means that with us, people that are not quite awake, and we're kind of dawdling through life, and we have this kind of very aggressive situation with somebody who's pointing at us, or at us, or prodding at us, we just basically have to find a little cave for 1 day maximum. Not much time, we don't have enough time. But as soon as you can, please answer messages, answer calls, try to get out of the house, go to a meeting, go to a bar, just do something. Just make sure that you are not stagnating in this feeling of like a child that's been shunned from home, or like a person who's been somehow kicked out or placed into destitute by another. So victimhood. There are no vibrations that are supporting victimhood this month. And I'm telling you, like, if you are going to say like, oh, he did this or she said this, now I can't, now my life is ruined, all of this type of stuff, you have got to catch on really fast here if you're doing this, okay? And you have to find friends, you got to find something to do, you got to find collaborators. And if you're really stuck, have a look in the past 2 or 3 months, what were you doing? Like, and what were you doing before maybe you and this person met? What did you usually do? Maybe did you write? Like, did you sing? Did you act? Did you draw? Did you make friends anywhere? Did you perhaps, go out of town? Maybe you need to like buy yourself a cruise, or like a ticket, even to, go out into the next city and, find something to do, go to some clubs or cafes, or like some kind of zoos, or I don't know, nature. Try not to make a space of the victim possible during this time, because after Leo, it's going to be set. Leo, okay, so we're defining our inner child and our kind of like inner martyr on some level. So it's like the happy king, the angry king, okay? And we've got to basically make it absolutely clear that we want to be where we want to be as well. And this is another thing. So, for example, you've got a crush on somebody, you know, tell them now's the time. You want to perform. Try. Just put on a show. Just put on a show, at least in front of the mirror for yourself. Just do it, okay? You want to like launch a book, okay? Contact publishers, okay? You want to, if you still want to become that individual that brings about something, there's usually a chance that it's not what you want to actually say, but it's kind of like being put together into this kind of whimsical thing. That's fine, okay? Get out there. You have to get out there. You have to have a fresh focus every time during this part of the year, especially when you give up on something. You got to get back on the horse, or you got to just like go somewhere else really quickly. So it's not about suffering. If you're suffering in Leo, so suffering in the time of the heart, and if you're bringing yourself down further down, or you're looking especially back, you know, my mom said this, oh, my dad. If you're doing this, this is like to no avail. So this can like stick us together like this, like really badly for the next long time. Also, in conflicts and any kind of like disgruntled activity, if you're chosen a side, especially if you're chosen a side, oh gosh, if you're chosen a side, or if you're doing things on a certain vibration and you can't break out of it, you've got to make it okay that this is happening and just move, like do something else. We've had this incredible time. We've got a really supportive stellium. There's going to be always people there. There's always got to be something there to do. You know, it's not one of those times when it's like, where am I? You know, everything is really compact during this time for everybody. Okay, so the sun is kind of hugged in by other planets. Okay, you're not unprotected. You know, nobody is. You know, and by the end of this eclipse season, also, anybody or anything, any mind, anything that had to really go, would have. You see. And now what you have around, you just have to play nice. If you are somebody who's nitpicking, like for example, okay, the big grave misunderstanding is being wiped away by the eclipse. I need another big grave misunderstanding, for who am I otherwise? The weight was lifted. Okay, the weight was lifted once or twice during the last month. So that means here you have a weightlessness. You have guidance, you know, you got guides, you got like kind of like luck. And if you can't face this time of ease and beauty without pretense, it is not going to happen for a long time. You've got to find something better to do. This is not also about scrambling and pushing people aside to get what you want. But it is about like just passively, neatly picking up, doing the new thing. If you are somebody, okay, if you are invested and the conflict keeps on going, or you know, things are not sticking together, but you are so super in it, this is where hobbies come to mind. You know, this is where animals come to mind. This is where dating is very cute, just as dating, just as play, just as fun, just as fantasy. You can get a lot out of this month if you can switch your attention and don't think negatively, and don't also try to shallow out other people, knock them off their horse, try to show everybody like they're not this or not that. Breaking up people, okay, breaking up who they are with or how they are going in their life is so, it is like, this is where you really set yourself up, okay? So like breaking up other people, breaking their projects, telling everybody else they're a bad person, making face, doing things behind people's backs, backstabbing, doing things like on the down low, like talking behind their backs, like doing all of this stuff. This is where you set yourself up for like a lot of really crazy stuff later in the year. You don't need this stuff, okay? So maybe just design for yourself a nice sense of esteem, a nice feeling of being part of something, a nice sense of being invited or involved Get together with the people that are naturally, organically coming towards you and that are available for your time. And also make sure you dream. So thank you very much. Enjoy, and I hope that you have fun creating and collaborating. And by the end of this month, you are becoming in your self perfection. And what you're doing, what you're creating, and what you're part of is also becoming perfect. Thank you very much. Better yet, I'm going to do a video for every sign. I'm going to do a video for every sign for this month of August. Please check out my Patreon. For like $1 a month, you can get like, I don't know, like 40 something videos a month. Okay, so I do like 12 videos, 40 something, no, 30 something videos. I do like 12 videos for, each sign. And I do them for the new moon, the full moon, and the month. So that's like 36 videos, plus I will be talking about like Uranus retrograde and all the different planets relocating from Leo to Virgo and what it means. So please sign up to my Patreon. You'll get a lot more than you think. And I hope that you enjoy my channel. Subscribe, like, la la la. And everything is in the details below. And also, if you like to read, I have published 5 books. So if you like, have a look. Thanks. Bye.